Hello. Are you ready to learn and have some fun? Then let's get ready for another educational adventure. Let's open up the coloring book called Space Exploration, because that's what this adventure is all about. Man's exploration of the mysteries of space. If you like, you could stop the cassette for a minute and flip through the pages before we begin. Go ahead. I'll wait for you. Did you see all those interesting ships and spacemen? I'll bet you can't wait to learn all about them. So, let's get going. The story begins on page 2. So, turn to that page now. Have you got it? Now, whenever you hear this sound, turn to the next page. Are you ready? Here we go. Are we all strapped in tight? Good.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
We're off on a journey through time and space. Look how dark it is. That's the blackness of space. And we're moving through it backwards. Back to the year 1957. High above the Earth. Looking down at one of the most exciting events in the history of the world. The first orbiting satellite. There it is. It looks like a balloon with 4 legs, doesn't it? That's Sputnik 1, launched by scientists in the Soviet Union on October 4th. Sputnik is a Russian word that means traveler, and it sure will be doing some traveling for 22 days, circling the Earth about once every 95 minutes at a speed of 18,000 miles per hour. 3.5 years later, the Russians will send the first man into space, Yuri Gagarin. And then, a month after that, it's May 1961 now, and that strange-looking vehicle, shaped like a giant top, is a Mercury space capsule, the Freedom 7. Inside is one of America's first astronauts, Alan Shepard, and he is the first American ever to travel into space. The flight will only last for 15 minutes, but in that time, Freedom 7 will reach an altitude of 115 miles and travel 302 miles from its launch site in Florida out into the Atlantic Ocean. There, it'll splash down and be picked up by special recovery ships which are standing by. It's a great moment in the history of space travel, but just a beginning, as you'll soon see. Let's move forward in time now to 1962. The date is February the 20th now. I know it looks almost the same as it did back in 1961. That's because this is another Mercury capsule. And it does look a lot like Alan Shepard's capsule. But this is Friendship 7. On board is John Glenn. And this is America's first orbital spaceflight. In 4 hours and 56 minutes, astronaut Glenn will circle the Earth 3 times. And the entire free world will travel with him by radio. They'll learn when he has trouble in maneuvering the craft and of the luminescent particles that float past the cabin window. And for 4.5 frightening minutes, all communications will be lost as the capsule re-enters the atmosphere and heats up to 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. But then, astronaut Glenn will splash down successfully in the Atlantic Ocean. We've moved ahead again, up to the end of 1962, and a lot further into space. In fact, we're over 36 million miles from Earth. Down below us is a planet that no man has ever set foot on, or is likely to for that matter. That's Venus, and we're finding out at this very moment why it's not a very nice place to visit. The temperature down there is over 800 degrees Fahrenheit. That strange-looking vehicle straight ahead is the Mariner 2 space probe. It's the one that's sending the temperature information about Venus back to Earth, where it was launched over 100 days ago. It's about 22,000 miles away from Venus right now, and that's as close as it's going to get. Soon, it'll pass by this warm, mysterious planet and head for the sun, where it'll probably go into orbit until it slowly gets closer to the sun and burns up. Well, we don't want to go in that direction, so let's turn ourselves around and head back toward Earth and forward in time again to March 1965, and another historic moment. It's a Gemini spacecraft on another 3-orbit trip around the world. But this time, there isn't just one astronaut aboard. This is America's first 2-man spaceflight, piloted by Gus Grissom and John Young. And for the first time, the craft is actually being steered by the astronauts. Up to now, American manned space flights have all been carried out without any real steering by the astronauts. But this time, they're at the controls. And although this ship doesn't look much bigger than the old Mercury capsules, it has a lot more cabin space and enough supplies for Grissom and Young to stay up for 14 days if necessary. If they did, they might have enough time to do what another astronaut did nearly 3 years later. Let's move ahead and take a look. There, one of the most exciting sights in the universe. A man walking in space. We're 100 miles above the Earth now, traveling at 17,000 miles an hour. And so is Major Edward H. White, the man in the spacesuit. Are you wondering if traveling at that speed makes Major White dizzy? Well, the answer is no. He doesn't notice the speed at all, and he doesn't have any sense of falling. That's because out in the vacuum of space, there isn't any up or down. And although the Major will travel 6,000 miles in 21 minutes, he won't feel as though he's moved at all. By the way, if you're wondering who Major White is talking to while he's walking around in space, it's another Major, James A. McDivitt, the command pilot on this flight. It'll be fun to stick around and listen in some more, but we have to move ahead to July 1965 and check up on Mariner 4. There it is. It looks like a fan from an automobile engine, doesn't it? But don't be fooled by appearances. That's one of the most sophisticated space probes ever launched. And right now, it's gathering information about the mysterious red planet, Mars. That's Mars just below. It looks huge, doesn't it? Almost as though it's close enough for us to come in for a landing. But Mariner's actually about 6,000 miles away from the planet's surface. And get this, the pictures the spacecraft is taking and sending back home are bringing Mars 30 times closer to Earth than the biggest and best telescopes could do. What's that? No, Mariner isn't photographing any Martians. As far as we know, there aren't any Martians. It sure would be fun if there were. We could go down there and swap pictures. Instead, we have to move forward to 1966. We have a history-making date with the moon. What a fantastic sight. Do you know what that tiny planet is in the background? That's right. That's the Earth. And it looks like that because we're looking at it from the surface of the moon. And right in front of us, a Surveyor space probe is coming in for the first American soft landing on the moon. Listen to those retro rockets roar. The Surveyor looks like a sort of mechanical spider, doesn't it? But that's the way they have to be built to do the job they're designed to do, to survey the moon for landing sites that our astronauts will use in the future. There'll be 6 more surveyors after this one, and altogether there'll be 5 soft landings on the moon by these amazing craft, sending thousands of pictures back to Earth and performing experiments with lunar soil samples. Now, if we just stay on the moon for a while and move forward in time, I think you'll be thrilled and surprised at what comes into view. I told you you'd be surprised, didn't I? But don't be scared. That's not the man in the moon. That's a man on the moon, in his spacesuit. In fact, that's astronaut Buzz Aldrin, the second man ever to set foot on the moon. The first was Neil Armstrong, who stepped out of their moon lander just before Buzz did. He's probably off somewhere exploring right now. Isn't that a fascinating-looking suit that Buzz is wearing? It's made of a metallic fabric that completely encloses him so that he can carry his own oxygen, heat, even air conditioning. On the moon, he couldn't live for a minute without that suit because there's no air at all. Now, if we can maneuver over to the right just a little bit and move back in time just a few hours, I'll show you one of the truly historic moments in the history of man.
Okay, here's it. I'm on the board.
There. Isn't that a sight? The first lunar module. It's July 20th, 1969 now, 10:56 Eastern Daylight Time. That's astronaut Neil Armstrong climbing down those stairs and about to become the first man ever to set foot on the moon. When he does, he'll say some words that'll be remembered forever by all who heard them. Do you remember?
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
That's right. That's one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind. What a thrilling moment. Tomorrow, after nearly 22 hours on the moon, Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin will climb back aboard and take off to join Michael Collins, orbiting above in the Apollo 11 module, and leaving the bottom half of the moon lander, the part with the 4 legs, standing on the moon, a sort of permanent monument to this great day. Well, we have to take off too, because we have another time journey ahead. 4 years forward to May 1973. We're high above the Earth now, watching the Skylab Orbital Workshop. It was launched a couple of weeks ago, but ran into trouble. So when the first crew of astronauts arrived to start conducting experiments, they first had to spend hours doing repairs and trying to release solar panels that were damaged on takeoff and failed to open. As you can see, they did a pretty good repair job because all the solar panels seem to be extended now. And a good thing too, because without them, there wouldn't be enough electricity aboard to do all the things they have to do. Right now, astronauts Charles Conrad, Joseph Kerwin, and Paul Weitz are inside. And by the time the year is over, 6 more astronauts will complete 2 more missions. Man is truly learning how to live in space, something that was once just a dream of science fiction writers. But something even more spectacular is happening up ahead in 1975. This is a truly historic event. Right now, for the first time since space exploration began, there are 7 men orbiting the Earth. 2 of them are cosmonauts, manning a Soviet space station. And the other 5, 3 Americans and 2 Soviets, are right here. The first rendezvous between a Russian and an American spaceship. That's the Russian ship up above, the Soyuz, with Colonel Alexei Leonov in command. The American Apollo is on the left, with a 3-man crew headed up by Brigadier General Tom Stafford. That strange-looking thing between the 2 ships is the docking module, and the Russian ship is moving toward it. It's almost noon now, on July 17th, and in just a minute, the news will be flashed to the whole world that the 2 ships have joined. What a wonderful moment. Let's leave them to celebrate their success and move ahead again, all the way to 1979 and far, far out into space. What an awesome sight this is. Let's take a moment to look at it. That spidery-looking vehicle up ahead is Voyager 1. It was launched from Earth a year and a half ago, in September 1977. And it's taken all this time for it to reach this point, high above the biggest planet in the solar system, the giant Jupiter. It was sent here to help us learn more about this mysterious planet. Right now, it's gathering thousands of pieces of information and sending them back to Earth for study. Soon, it will head on past Jupiter, and by November 1980, it'll be passing Saturn and on into outer space. Now remember, this is Voyager 1, because now I want to show you something strange. There. What's that you said? It looks just like Voyager 1? Well, you're right, because it is another Voyager, but this time it's Voyager 2. And what's strange, or at least a little bit, is that Voyager 2 was launched before Voyager 1. But Voyager 1 is moving faster and overtook Voyager 2 a long time ago. In 1981, Voyager 2 gave us the closest look we've ever had of Saturn, with its sparkling rings, 886 million miles from the Sun. And now, in 1986, it's coming within almost 50,000 miles of the cloud tops over Uranus, and discovering things we never knew before. What kind of things? Well, for one thing, it's found that Uranus has 15 moons, and we could only find 5 with our Earth telescopes. And while we always thought Uranus had 9 rings, Voyager 2 has discovered a 10th. After a voyage of 8 years and 3 billion miles, Voyager 2's cameras and one of its radios are still working and teaching us new things about the solar system. Soon, it will leave here and travel on to Neptune, then out beyond Pluto and into the far reaches of outer space, traveling perhaps forever. But we have to keep our minds back on Earth, because there's one more space wonder to see before we finish our great adventure.
W5LFL from spacecraft Columbia. The spacecraft attitude is not very good for hand communications.
There. We came back so fast that we moved back in time, too, to April 1981. Just in time to witness the first launch of an orbiting space shuttle, the Columbia. On board are astronauts John Young and Bob Crippen, and they'll take Columbia around the world 36 times before coming into land like a plane, but without power. What little fuel they have left after discarding those solid fuel booster rockets is used up getting the ship into the re-entry mode. So the landing has to be just about perfect. And that's the way Young and Crippen will bring it back, with a perfect touchdown, launching us into another new and exciting phase of the fascinating world of space exploration. And we've landed too, back back on our own planet and in our own time. That was one exciting trip, wasn't it? Maybe one day you'll be able to travel to distant planets. But right now, it's time to take this trip again. This time, without crayons. Start back on page 2 and color everything you see. The spaceships, the planets, and the spacemen. And while you're coloring, don't forget to play the tape again. Time to say goodbye now, and we hope to see you again real soon with another educational adventure.